Hey, welcome to Gen Z and Social Trends. I'm Leah Haberman. I am not a graphic designer, but I am a social expert. I work for companies like Google, Disney, and others. I teach social media marketing at the university level, and I write a marketing newsletter called ICYMI, or In Case You Missed It, for marketers and creators. Now, today we are going to be diving into how to make sense of the latest social trends, which ones you should chase after, and which ones you should ignore. I'm going to break it down into three types of trends. You can think of these as short, mid, and long term trends, including the kind that you're most likely to get approved by leadership without a million rounds of review, because that's important, right? We will talk about should we or shouldn't we. I've got a decision tree to help you make sense of which trends you want to pursue, and then where to look, which is resources, places to stay on top of trends. Along the way, I'll also point out if there's a way to use Adobe Express to help you create this content more efficiently and effectively. I actually did this presentation in Adobe Express. So let's get into it. If you want to reach Gen Z, you have to understand how they communicate. And memes or short term trends are a Gen Z love language. It is how Gen Z discovers new products, how they join conversations, and how they express their identities online. But not every meme or trend is worth chasing. You should treat them as a piece of your social media marketing strategy, not the whole plan. To give us some framework into the types of trends that I'm talking about and figure out which ones are probably going to be the easiest for you to execute, I've broken it down into three types of trends. So you've got trending moments. These are typically memes. Think like Love Island Mamacita or Jet 2 Holiday, if you remember those. They are fun, but you need to be staffed for this kind of reactive marketing. And the content really needs to tie back to the brand identity in some way so that it amplifies your message and doesn't distract from it. Now, format trends are your social workhorse. These are actually my favorites. It's how people package and deliver content on social media. You can use these frequently without worrying that you've missed the moment if legal takes a while to approve because they've got a longer lifespan. They're not here today, gone tomorrow. And then you've got macro trends. These are the big societal shifts, consumer behavior shifts. These should be at the heart of everything that you do. It's recognizing the moment and how audiences expect to hear from you. But this isn't just about the social team. Really, macro trends are about getting the entire organization on board in understanding how culture is changing. We're going to start with trending moments or short term trends. These are your surface level memes usually. It's fun, it's fast moving, but it's fleeting. It's usually sparked by a specific creator, sound, or scenario. I went looking for examples to show you, and I found that Taco Bell taps into almost all of these daily. I don't know if you remember the I'm bored, so tell me, or I almost forgot this is the whole point, and my friend's going to show you something, so you better be nice. Now, it makes sense for Taco Bell. They are not struggling to establish awareness. Nobody's confused about who Taco Bell is. For them, it's about remaining relevant as a legacy brand that wants to appeal to a new generation of customers. So, yeah, there are slightly different rules depending whether you're a legacy brand, a startup, or a small business, but there are some common things that you have to observe, some key kind of rules and elements to follow. We are looking for a balance of speed, brand awareness or identity, and being able to execute. So you need to be first or very early. I don't know if you remember the action figure pack. Jake Heath, who is credited with doing the first action figure pack in AI and posting to LinkedIn that a lot of people and a lot of brands copied. Now, if you're late to the party or you don't know when you're actually going to be able to join the party because you haven't gotten leadership or legal approval, you really need to be able to add a twist or some sort of tension to your content, putting your own stamp on it, like SEMrush did here. This is the one in the middle. I think that this was actually really clever. If you're not first, second, or third, you've really got to find a way to make yourself distinct, to stand out. And then you also need to have a strong brand fit. If you haven't found a twist, if you're not first, find a way to align with the trend that really ties into your brand identity. I love what Robert Half did here with the recruiter accessories pack. It would be very hard to mistake this for a Taco Bell, for example. Like it's very clearly a kind of like a B2B play. So again, it's like you've got to think about how are we going to make this an ownable moment? And if you can't check the box on any of these, that might be a sign to sit this one out. Now, the reason that I'm giving you all these kind of rules or key elements is that these type of short-term trends really need to be part of a rapid response strategy. And the reason for this is audiences want to see brands jump on board within 1 to 2 days. That's according to Sprout Social's 2025 index report. So if you want to play in the viral space, you need a fast turnaround team and cross departmental support or approval process. Because if a brand posts kind of the hot, trendy meme 3 weeks later after legal approves it, not only is it very awkward, it's also probably too late and you've missed the moment to have any impact. Now we're going to move on to format trends, a little more high vibe here. This is how content is packaged and presented. And it does require some degree of social media literacy in understanding how the platforms work and how stories are told on social, but it doesn't require you to be quite as extremely online as a viral trend hunter for a moment, for example. And it doesn't abandon value for the sake of virality. Now, format trends are a really good way to embrace a social first approach that lasts longer than a day or two. And I'm going to break it down into two different themes. We've got native platform features and storytelling styles. Now, taking advantage of native platform features might look like a lot of different things. I've got a few listed here. One of them is the 2x speed feature. I don't know if you know, but if you're watching Reels or TikTok and you put your thumb down on the action on the video speeds up. So we've seen bars, we've seen coffee shops, all kinds of different businesses use this to speed up a barista or a bartender, for example. Couple of other things, carousels, and I'll talk about those in a second. And then also close friends. I think that's an underrated feature. Use the brand kit, personalize it, create a VIP space that's on brand for your top customers, for your favorite creators that you work with. For anybody that's in your audience that you want to invite into the close friends space. Now, storytelling styles are another way to stay current by delivering your content in a culturally relevant and contemporary way that shows you get it. So, for example, this summer we've seen a lot of split image posts. Aloe, Starbucks, a lot of other brands have used this. It looks like two posts interacting with each other, but it's actually just an extended template. Other ways that you can use storytelling styles or devices. There's flat lays. I think, remember the OG flat lay, and that was like the perfect aesthetic top down shot. Last year, it was TSA bins. This year, if you've kind of been tapped into these storytelling style trends, it's been coffee trays. People have used that to create this kind of like I would say chaotically curated arrangement on a coffee tray. Next year, it'll probably be something else. Another one that's also a very popular format for storytelling is the man or woman on the street interviews. You're going around with a mini mic and you're asking questions, you're talking to people. These are all ways of signaling that you get it, that you're in on the social platforms, the features, and the way that contemporary storytelling is happening. Now, to me, formats are your cheat code, right? It's generally the easiest type of content to get approved because there's not really anything controversial here. And they last longer than a slogan or a song, for example. Now, you might be interested in this data that shows that carousels actually perform better on LinkedIn and sometimes even on Instagram. Reels might deliver the most reach, but carousels actually drive 12% more engagement on Instagram. So, this is kind of a cheat code or a little secret to success in knowing which content formats are actually performing best. We are now going to shift to macro trends that anchor long term strategy. We know that Gen Z expects brands to understand the culture they live in, and they want to see that reflected back to them. That means staying on top of culture, on top of the way creators are communicating, and on top of the way your online community is connecting and communicating. Tracking these big picture shifts in how Gen Z uses social media. I'm going to show you 3 examples for macro trends just because I think it's really important. Now, our first macro trend is co creation, and over 25% of Gen Z have hacked or modified an app or website feature. If there is a barrier, they're going to find a workaround. If you work in social, you've seen this with people posting screenshots or screen recordings of things. This is a generation raised on social platforms and digital tools. They don't just consume culture, they remix it. Gen Z is constantly creating. Now, obviously, I'm not going to ask you to ask your followers to hack your app or website, but you can design for participation. That's why we're seeing platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube come out with these collaboration features like duets, remixes, stitches, for example. You can also invite your audience to react, remix, or build upon your content, like McDonald's did here, where you take a screenshot and it picks the menu items for you. It's not just about passive consumption, but about becoming part of the moment. Other ways that you can encourage engagement and participation, ask for tips, life hacks, feedback, for example. This really helps the audience feel like it's a participatory experience versus a very passive one way stream of information or entertainment coming at them. Now, our second kind of macro trend or big shift, over a third of Gen Z feel nostalgic for the 90s, despite the majority of them being born in the 2000s or later. A lot of people feel that the 90s and that era represents a simpler time that was about having fun and less screen time. That can be reflected in your design, the values you share, even the creators that you work with. Went with an audio cue that was unmistakably old school, whether or not you were alive in the 80s or sorry, whether or not you were alive in the 90s. Almost everybody can identify the dial-up tone. I'm couldn't make it play here on my slideshow, so I'm just gonna have you imagine the most obnoxious dial-up dial tone you can imagine, and that accompanies Instacart's video. And then the third macro trend is social really is the new TV. Over half of Gen Z says social content is more relevant than traditional entertainment, and YouTube is their number one platform for watching. And it's not just Gen Z. Nielsen has actually reported that seniors are watching double the YouTube on their TV sets compared to last year. We are moving from social media to just media. That means that it is time to think like a TV studio. You want to create episodic or serialized content. You want to build recurring formats, familiar casts, and sets that keep people coming back. And you want to use hooks, intros, and themes that really reel people in and catch their attention. Think about what makes a people binge a show and try and bring some of that energy to your social content. Earlier this year, Nutter Butter talked at Social Media Week about building out your own brand world, lore, and characters. And I like that they didn't say just duplicate us. They do a very kind of unhinged type of content, but that wasn't really their message. The message was like, find what makes sense for you and develop your own universe or world as a brand. And so since then, we've seen InStyle, Aloe Yoga, Little Caesars, Built, all of these brands shooting their own series, becoming the entertainment people want to watch. And now I couldn't talk about social series without creating and sharing one of my own. I used Adobe Express brand to stay consistent, and I created a mini LinkedIn video series that would kind of fit within the overall In Case You Missed It universe. From the logo to the fonts to the color to the graphic elements, I was able to keep everything on brand and kind of try and participate in this trend myself. Now, before we get to our decision tree, let's do a quick recap. If you don't have a framework for quick turn content and an approval process in place for trending moments or memes, maybe consider skipping them. use trending formats as a way to share your message in a culturally relevant contemporary way. This is the one I really encourage you to look at. I think it's much more feasible for many more brands and organizations. And then start researching and pitching macro trends now so that you can get the entire organization on board. These are the important kind of cultural consumer behavior shifts that you really want audiences online to see that you're tapped into. Now, I created this decision tree to kind of help you think through whether or not it's worth jumping on a trend, especially a meme. You can kind of go through this with your team, take a screenshot. Ultimately, what you're thinking about is, does this make sense for our brand in the feed? Can we make it happen quickly? And if we can't, is it going to be around in a month so that we can still use this? Can we get everyone on board easily internally, leadership approval, legal approval, for example? Is there any chance of a backlash? Is this so off brand or problematic that we're going to get in trouble for this? And then is it going to create an impact? Is it going to move the needle for us, or is it just part of kind of having fun? And again, there's nothing wrong with short term trends. I'm definitely not coming out against short term trends. I think there's almost a trend now against trends. I think it's great if you're resourced to do it and if it makes sense for your brand. But otherwise, I just don't want anybody leaving here feeling bad like we can't jump on memes. That's okay. You've got so many other opportunities to join the cultural conversation. And then I promised you some resources. So you've got Adobe's resources that are great for figuring out what's currently trending on TikTok or format trends that are working. You can use TikTok Symphony Assistant add-on, the Adobe Express social media blog, their newsletter. There are also Adobe Express social ambassadors. Taylor Loren and Lucas O'Keefe, both favorites of mine for staying on top of things. They're always talking about content trends, format trends, different kind of social memes, things that are popping off. They are really great people to follow. And then you've got newsletters. I call these kind of like culture makers or culture trackers. Clearly, I'm a fan. I write a newsletter, so I added mine there. But a couple of others that I also recommend, Rachel Carton and Andy Lambert. All of us talk about social trends, brand social, and these kind of bigger cultural shifts to help you stay on top or on track of things. And then for up to the minute trending results, most of the major platforms have their own dashboards or lists. So, for example, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they all have resources so that you can look at what is trending in this very moment, especially those kind of like trending moments, viral trends, memes, for example. My best advice is keep an eye on culture trackers. So that's newsletters, like I mentioned, or even news sources, news sites, TechCrunch, for example. Keep an eye on competitors and creators, like what are other people at the top of their game also doing on social? And then make sure that you are scrolling and either participating in or monitoring online conversation between your community and other communities so you understand how people are communicating, how they're connecting, and how they expect you to show up on social. That's all I've got for now. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope to see you at Adobe Max. And if I don't, I'll see you on social media.